Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today on this Friday are sponsored by Basant Motors. They also sponsor you guys' crossover on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
Basant is the home of the No Tax November. Let Basant pay that pesky GST on your next vehicle. Stop by their dealership located at 16315 Fraser Highway in beautiful Fleetwood, or check them out online at basantmotors.com. We're joined now by our good pal every Friday on this program out of the Athletic and Sportsnet 650. It's Thomas Drance on the program. Thomas, how are you, sir?
Gentlemen, thank you for having me. Love to be here with you guys on a Friday, a Black Friday, in fact. To peddle garbage and laugh at the failures of Canucks fans. That's how it goes. That's what we do in the media, apparently. And that's facts, not feelings. So it goes.
So Thomas is referencing something that got a lot of play yesterday, our interview with Michael Bublé, if you haven't mentioned it. And Michael referenced the media loving, I'm paraphrasing, but loving the negativity and loving the downturn of the Canucks. And a lot of media folk would push back on that and say, business-wise, that's definitely not the case. It's much better when things are good with this franchise.
Well, it's just not a fact that the media feels that way. I mean, that's not true, right? Like, there is no bad faith here on the media side. We're doing our best to analyze the team. Just speaking for myself, I think I've come across as negative in part because I've been insisting that I think this team should rebuild for much of the last 5 years. That's not really a negative take. That's just an opinion. And, it's an honestly held one. I want to see this franchise succeed, and I want to see good things happen for this engaged, vibrant fan base in this city. And I think that's what it's going to take. Michael from Burnaby, he has been believing that this team has a gold standard plan to get this turned around in a hurry without a, cheap, quick rebuild for 12 years. And I don't know, I'm seeing the returns and I don't really buy it, gentlemen. So just out here to say, in good faith, I love how engaged this fan base is. I love the arguments. I think that's part of the fun. We should all have different perspectives and the opportunity to say them. And we should all have the sort of understanding too that whether you believe in this team's direction or whether you've been skeptical of it across a decade plus, you're operating in good faith. You're probably just saying what you honestly believe will work or what this franchise needs to do because you care. And that's more than anything what I'd say about it. I think that's a good thing. I think it's good to have arguments and debates and different points of view. The real fact of the matter here, though, not feelings, facts, is that this team's been stuck for 10 years. And that's part of what colors some of the tone of the coverage and the conversation. If there's media members out there, and again, this is speaking for me, like when I see this team struggle the way they have this season, right? When I see them sink to the bottom of the standings and be playing in a way where I think that losing might actually continue. I don't hope for the team to lose, but I do get a little bit excited that this might be this franchise's opportunity to get one of those top picks, to have sort of a franchise altering moment in terms of the direction that this group is going, like we saw this week, not because I don't want to see the team succeed, but for quite the opposite reason, because I do, because I think it's a necessary step to bring championship level hockey back to the city. That's it.
I will agree with you, Thomas. I think sometimes people link if you're negative or perceived negative with your not wanting to be a fan of the team, and those two things don't jive. You on Tuesday had the article at the Athletic talking about this team making veterans available and all of that and where things are headed. So I think you touched on a little bit there, but do you believe, is this finally the time that maybe and Rutherford referenced not a rebuild, retool, whatever, with Patrick Johnson? Do you believe, are we headed to that time where maybe there's some tough conversations had with a good selection of players on this roster?
I think the time for tough conversations has come. And I do think this organization is going to steer in a slightly different direction as they, gauge the market and figure out their next steps. But do I think we're on the verge of a rebuild that's as dramatic as someone like me would deem to be sufficient? We don't. And I don't anyway. And I think the Rutherford quote to Patrick Johnson, where he's ripping off the rebuild versus retool and the semantic silliness of how we get caught up over what the team labels it, right? Which obviously doesn't matter. And I thought that riff was quite funny from Jim Rutherford. He then adds, and I think this is the really telling quote, it's the same place we've been since we traded JT Miller, right? And gentlemen, for me, that's a really key tell that this is going to be different, right? It's going to be a team that I do think is going to look at getting younger, is going to be willing to, or more willing to live with young players' mistakes. I know you gentlemen have a poll question up about young players and their form at the moment. And I know Rick doesn't like when I reference his poll questions, but you know, I do think that's an interesting takeaway coming out of that Anaheim game. So I do think that's going to happen. I do think some of these veterans, some of these almost like pre-deadline type seller trades might be expedited. And I think the organization's willing to do that because of what they've seen from this team over the course of the season. I know they had a really fun, really exciting win on Wednesday night, but I doubt that would change this overall takeaway that the club's had, that, you know, we don't have enough mental toughness right now. We're not, we're lacking in the will to win far too consistently over the course of the season. And that's going to necessitate something of a change. But again, I don't think we're going all the way to the sort of, you know, creative, disciplined, tear it down type. Let's get 3 or 4, or at least 2 sort of top picks into the mix and see where we go, which in my view anyway, gentlemen, is kind of what this club is going to need, you know, and that's regardless of whether or not Quinn Hughes stays or not. And that's regardless of how the things with JT Miller played out last season. That's just an organization that, in my view anyway, you know, is falling behind on talent and needs an infusion of those guys that matter at the top of the draft.
My eyes are on Sherwood. A lot of teams are interested for obvious reasons. He's a UFA. He's got 12 goals. But you know what? At the trade deadline, he might have 25 goals. I don't know. What can they get for this guy today as opposed to at the deadline?
So Keeper Sherwood's an interesting one, Rick. I mean, I think the club, as they view it, you know, would prefer young players back, right? Like young players over draft picks. I reported that on Tuesday. Elliot Friedman fleshed it out in 32 Thoughts. So you're getting that from multiple sources. That's also consistent with something that this team has done across the last decade plus. It is prefer sort of young NHL players, like more certain lottery tickets as opposed to the dart throw of a draft pick. But I do think that ultimately they'd be willing to trade for draft picks too for some of these players. And in Sherwood's case, I mean, doesn't he feel to you like a player that should be able to get a second plus given his production in the early part of the season? I mean, it feels like the market value should be high. You know, I think a second round pick's probably the more realistic place for this to land, and we'll see where it goes. You know, the reporting that I did on Tuesday, I was told like the club's going to be open-minded in continuing contract talks with Sherwood in his camp. And that, you know, if another team didn't meet their market price, like they value this guy enough that they'd be willing to have his contract play out, that they'd be willing to continue talking, you know, right to the death of July 1, the way they did with, you know, Brock Besser, which worked out, or Pius Suter, which didn't. So we'll see where this goes. I think the club is willing to consider these types of deals. He's a 30-year-old pending UFA. Of course, they have to, right? Maybe not now, but at some point over the course of the next 3 months, this was going to come up regardless. And I think if the market price is met, you know, then we'll see exactly how willing this team is to begin to shift their direction slightly.
I don't think they want to trade Garland in a perfect world, but look at it. Look at him against the Ducks. 23 minutes, 5 shots, killing penalties, driving play, passion, everything. I mean,
beautiful goal.
Yeah, beautiful goal. Teams love this guy, and for obvious reasons. I don't think they want to move him, but if they get an offer that blows him out of the water, you got to think about it.
I mean, I think the logic of this cap growth era that we're in sort of does dictate different things than it used to, right? Where, you know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I would have said, you know, that's a deal you absolutely have to consider. And look, you're right. You probably still do if you're changing direction more materially. But I would also say you have to be, in my view anyway, like, you can afford to keep more good players around because they're harder to get, right? And because it's more difficult to use the cap space they vacate to replace them, right? It's going to be hard to use all the cap space that teams have, given the quality of UFAs coming up over the next couple of years, right? And so for me anyway, that sort of changes how many good players I think the Canucks should keep around. Garland, for example, I mean, I think he's a really good player. I think he's a top line guy who can drive play and produce 5-on-5 at a really high level. And I don't think that's necessarily the sort of guy that I'd be prioritizing if I was the organization jettisoning at this point. And I won't be surprised if he sticks around. Just feels to me like the DeBrusk, Besser, Garland, Hronek, Hughes, obviously, Axis, Pettersson too. Like, it feels like their core guys maybe aren't going to be included in this just yet, Rick. I feel like this is more 30 plus players, right? And the expiring guys. I think that's where they're at now, and we'll see if they decide to go deeper, sort of as this season plays out and as this process plays out in the wake of this team's struggles through the first 24 games.
Did you like what you saw on Wednesday, Thomas, in Anaheim? I know. I think I heard you recently on 650 say you're not too keen into reading into game-by-game results right now with the flux this team is in, but what did you think of what you saw on Wednesday?
I mean, it was fun. It was pond hockey, and it was a ton of fun. Here's the things that I really liked. I liked Nikita Tolopilo's game.
I was going to ask about him
I thought
too,
Nikita Tolopilo was immense. That was an awesome start for the young goaltender. Looked massive in net and saved a ton of goals. I don't know. They won. This team, my view of this team anyway, is they're pretty cagey. There's a lot of veteran players on this team, right? This is not the young team that the organization keeps saying it is, right? Most of their top 10 ice time guys are, 25 plus. In fact, they don't have a guy under the age of 25 who's among the top 10 skaters in ice time on this team. And that's very different from that Anaheim Ducks team where the bus is being driven by, guys who are 19 and 20 and 21. And I thought that showed. I thought the Ducks, you could see how high their gear is, right? You could see that immense sort of offensive potential. The reason they've been skating a lot of teams off the ice. I mean, you could see it late in the second period. You could see it in the first period. But they were sloppy. They had a sloppy game and they got bad goaltending. And if you have bad goaltending and play a sloppy game, this is a veteran Canucks team that, can take advantage of you and make their shots. And that's what I thought played out in Anaheim. I don't know that it was some world's better effort overall. They still got out attempted 91-66 on the game. Their penalty kill looked great. Their penalty kill looked great. Nikita Tolopilo looked great. And other than that, I felt like it looked a lot like many of the games we've seen this season where, the Canucks are in it. But it's clear which team is, packed with more potential and talent as you're watching it unfold. And it's not the Canucks.
Black Friday today, Thomas. If you haven't already, get out there, get your shopping done before the 1 o'clock Canucks game.
Yep.
Yeah, 1 o'clock Canucks game. We've got 1 p.m. football. We've got college football all day. I mean, what a gift. What a beautiful time of year this is, gentlemen. Happy American Thanksgiving to you both. Happy Black Friday. And I'll do my shopping online. Thank you very much, Ryan.
All right.
Thanks, Tom. Talk to you next week.
Cheers, boys.